De Miguel y Maylin, por ejemplo.
Exactamente.
Exacto, entonces ¿por qué no me pregunta directamente?
Bueno, ya, es lo que
Es más fácil, ¿no?
Dígame.
Ya, Miguel y Maylin.
¿Dentro?
Sí. No entiendo.
No, el problema es que Lin es una persona controlada por nosotros.
¿Quiénes son ustedes?
La policía.
La policía.
O sea, que tienen un documental que habla muy mal de Fiesta.
Sí.
Aquí no se permite eso. Eso es un mensaje para ustedes, eso es un mensaje para ella, para sus cosas. Aquí no se va a permitir eso. La constitución que hay aquí, estés tú de acuerdo o no, te haya gustado a ti o a los demás o a la gran minoría no les haya gustado el procedimiento, fue la que se aprobó. Quiere decir que las leyes que están hoy vigentes, la mayoría las aprobó. Si tú crees en las leyes de otros países, estás en otros países. Aquí hay una sola institución. Si usted no está afiliado, no eres fotógrafo aquí. No puedes vincularte porque ellos no son ni artistas, ni son fotógrafos, ni son nada.
Yo creo que sí son artistas, pero bueno.
Bueno, se hacen llamar, se autotitulan artistas independientes. Eso aquí no...
Sí, claro.
Eso es ilícito aquí.
Ah, artista independiente es ilícito.
Claro.
Bueno, está bien. Yo no voy a discutir eso ahora.
¿Por
Pero...
qué? Si tú quieres discutirlo, lo discutimos. La ley está bien clara.
Sí, pero...
No están afiliados a ninguna institución de...
Compadre, para ser artista no hay que estar afiliado a nada.
Eso lo dices tú.
Por supuesto que lo digo yo. Eso lo dices tú también,
No,
que hay que estar afiliado.
Eso lo dice la ley. Eso lo dice la ley.
Está bien. Imagínese.
No, imagínese usted, cambia la ley, ve, entonces sube a la sierra, entonces con un fusil.
Alone in his never-finished, already decaying pleasure palace, aloof, seldom visited, never photographed, an emperor continued to direct his failing empire, vainly attempted to sway as he once did the destinies of a nation that had ceased to listen to him, ceased to trust him.
Esperábamos todo de la revolución, todo lo que no habíamos tenido antes. Yo la critico y quiero que esto pase y que termine, pero es la vieja novia de uno. Y a esa vieja novia se le sigue amando, ¿no? De algún modo. No hay palabras para hablar de esto.
In Nadia, it was very interesting because I had a character, it's my only documentary feature, and he was very interesting because he was very open to bring out his inner contradictions. As a matter of fact, the film has not, it's banned in Cuba, but it has also not been shown at the Miami Film Festival, for example. A lot of people, when we finally did a screening there, a lot of people that had left in the early years of the revolution came up to me really angry and said I was a communist because at some point the main character says he's still a socialist and he defends Che Guevara. And those contradictions that were really, that's really the point, because the moment some political group can take the film as a banner for their ideology, that's when, so it makes me happy that it angers people that are in a polarized position, because that's what it's about. It's supposed to make you uncomfortable. A lot of people go to see a political movie to reinforce a vision they already have on the subject matter, and not to enter into a debate with themselves. And Alcides was interesting because of that, because he has a lot of doubts throughout the film, and he's not afraid to show them in front of a camera. I'm always drawn to these characters because they have strong opinions about the world, but they don't fit in, and at the same time they're like waging a war against all political stances in a way, because they don't blend into one another, and that creates a series of contradictions that are really what interest me. Because many times people, when they deal with a political subject matter in a film, they try to make a more leveled approach. I go for another stance, which is to go against, contra todas las banderas, like we say in Spanish, against all possible flags, and try to look for the darkness in every part that is involved in a conflict. That's the way you have to look at political issues. The minute you invest yourself emotionally, you are too close to be able to criticize something. So it's better to always pretend that all this happened 50 years ago and try to look at it from the future. You're not providing answers, and I think that's something that a filmmaker should never try to do, because that's when it stops being art and becomes something else. During the 1960s, after the Cuban Revolution, there was a concept developed in Cuba by the film industry that films had to somehow educate the people. And so that social function created a lot of films where they have to be films that will make it for a smarter, more prepared citizen, but at the same time, they neglected the, I would say, the more personal poetics that a filmmaker could have at the time. People that didn't really go for that truly didn't have space. Many people left by the end of the 1960s in Cuba.
Cosas son cuando él las dice y todo lo que él dice es ley.
A mí me gustan las películas del oeste. ¿Verdad? Las tomaba en serio, porque los muchachos son muy adictos a todo lo que es guerra y violencia.
He's the guy who's the talk of the town with the restless gun. Don't you bother to fool him around. Keeps the vomits on the run.
We're never going to be a family again.
Adam likes to touch things he shouldn't.
So that was the closest time I was to go into the industry, because I got a phone call from Robert Tappert, the producer from Sam Raimi's Evil Dead movies. And they saw the film, and he asked if I was willing to work in a more, with a screenplay provided by somebody else and do a horror movie. At the time they opened up this company called, I think, Ghost House Pictures, and they were doing low budget horror movies. And I said, well, yeah, I could work if I have final cut and the project, I could make a horror film. And of course he didn't, he asked me if I had another offer from somebody else. I said, no, I don't have any other offer, I guess. And that's it, that was it. Of course, I didn't get the job. None of my films have traditional distribution to date. Only the first one, Red Cockroaches, which just was re-released, by the way, in Blu-ray. But so what I do is I have the sales agent that rents the movies to the academic world or plays them in museums, cinematheques once in a while, or when there is a retrospective, but they don't have per se commercial distribution, except for streaming online. And so in a way, yes, I have to make a living by giving talks about my films rather than from the film itself, but it allows you to keep working, and doing the films you want, which is what's really important. In Cuba, the problem is completely political. From memories of overdevelopment, which played at the Havana Film Festival, although it was presented out of competition in a section called Latin American Panorama, then it was not released. None of them have been released, even 1 week, which is the shortest amount of release that they could have in a theater in Cuba. And right now, not even at a festival I can show any of my films after Nadia. I'm completely banned. I don't exist in the cultural life of the country. We do clandestine screenings sometimes in some places, and for the last film, for Blue Heart, as well as for Nadia, we were doing screenings here at home every Sunday at 2 p.m. Sometimes there are alternative spaces that show the film unannounced, of course, in social media, because that can create police raids, which is what we had with Nadia, only 3 blocks away from here, at an art gallery where no more than 30 people could fit in. It was a visual artist gallery, and still there was police cars blocking the 2 sides of the street so that nobody would show up. They have, there was one time they tried to talk to me when in the second police raid we had with a theater play, and one of the guys wearing civilian clothes walked to me and said, "Are you Miguel Coyula?" And I said, "Yes, I need to talk to you." And I said, "I have nothing to talk about with you," because I realized who he was. And that was it. To me, they didn't try to talk directly. What they did is all this collateral damage. And then we gathered that there were so many actors and collaborators that were walking away from us and wouldn't talk to us again. So we assumed that this probably could have happened to them, that they were intimidated by state security agents. Independent filmmaking in Cuba is really a very gray area because for the last, only until recently, 5 years ago, they created this new law that I'm going to talk about. But before that, independent filmmaking was in a legal limbo. People didn't exist. They were doing these films, and many times they couldn't show it in Cuba. They were not recognized by the Cinematheque. When they do a catalog of all the Cuban films a year, they don't appear there. But 5 years ago, they did a law, a decree, basically, which is the 373 decree, that regulates independent filmmakers, and they provide them with an ID of independent filmmakers, but the institution that provides this ID is the official film industry, and means that they have to have their scripts approved. And there's something that is really creepy about the content of the films, that they said they have to be within the liberties allowed by the Cuban Revolution, which is a straitjacket for whatever they decide that is not right. And I decided to, most filmmakers that were called independent signed and got their independent filmmaker ID from them, but me, and I can tell you about another filmmaker, Jorge Molina, who refused also to do that. And yeah, I decided to keep operating outside the radar, because when we are filming, it's most of the times 3 people if we are lucky, because it's mostly just me and my partner Lynn when we are in the street, so we don't draw too much attention. Well, ICAIC is right now, I'm not sure if they're producing. I mean, I know that the money used to come from them before the collapse of the Soviet Union, but more and more they depend on foreign investors and co-productions, usually from Europe, to be able to finance the film. So I'm not exactly what they're doing now. I haven't been in that building for many years, but I think technically they should be concerned with distribution of films, but I don't think that's happening too much either. A lot of cinemas have closed here because of bad conditions. If you leave the main area of the city, most cinemas in the country are shut down. It's really sad. And yeah, they don't have much money, really. Yeah, the government controls every single movie theater. Sometimes they do showcases of foreign movies as well, not only Cuban. And the Cinematheque still shows cycles of foreign directors as well. Well, I don't have the magic ball to predict what's going to happen, but that's what makes it interesting to make movies trying to imagine what could happen and where it could go. I think that it's pretty grim, the future, because I really hope we don't get invaded by this neoliberalist state that a lot of the world, the rest of the world is at. Because I would really like, which is of course a dream, I would like Cuba to be closer, let's say, to the social democracy of the Nordic countries, but it's a different idiosyncrasy and it's not going to happen here. By nature, Latin America, most Latin American countries are very corrupt politically. Edmundo Desnoes, the writer of Memories of Underdevelopment, used to say that it's because of the weather that everything decomposes here faster. And it comes from Spain as well, and cacique culture of Spain. But I don't know, I don't belong to any political party because of that, because the minute you start to believe in a politician, you know that politician is going to have to make a compromise to get a larger amount of followers, and that compromise might hurt you, so I always try to stay away, far away from anything that is an affiliation with a political party, even though I have, of course, I would want social justice to prevail here in Cuba, which is really the promises of the early years of the revolution have all failed. Even though the facade is still socialism, the truth is that what we're living is a low-budget capitalism. For a while I was concerned, when I came back in 2010 to live in Cuba, a lot of people said I was crazy, but really the stories I wanted to tell were happening here. Blue Heart and Nadia were happening here, and I could have not made them otherwise. And I felt at that time that somehow from the margins I could contribute to provide a different voice to Cuban films. But now the truth is I don't really care about the Cuban culture per se, because most of my colleagues have left. So you're just becoming more and more individualistic, and you're just doing the work that you want to do, and of course staying true to your principles, but you cannot expect it that it's going to be shown in a theater while this system is going, and even if after it collapses, maybe it becomes this really commercial place where you're not able to show your movies anyway. So you just got to do it for yourself, and you're the first audience that has to like it, and if you like it, there's always going to be a group, even if it's small, that's going to like it.